The lawyer's pen scratched across the signature line, and I watched my father sign away everything my mother left behind. Every dollar. Every memory. Every promise she made while dying in that hospital bed. The inheritance document sat between us on the polished oak table, and my name wasn't anywhere on it. Just my brother's. Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, arms crossed, that familiar smirk playing at the corners of his mouth like he'd just won a game I didn't know we were playing. "Wait," I said, my voice coming out smaller than I wanted. "Where's my portion?" The lawyer, Mr. Daniels, adjusted his glasses and looked at my father. Dad didn't even glance my way. He just pushed the document toward the lawyer with 2 fingers, like he was sliding away trash. "There is no portion for you, Naomi," Dad said flatly. "You'd waste it anyway." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Marcus actually laughed. Not a surprised laugh. A satisfied one. Like he'd been waiting for this moment. The fluorescent lights hummed above us. The clock on the wall ticked. My mother's entire life savings, everything she'd worked for, everything she'd promised would help me build something real, was gone. Not stolen. Given away. By the one person who was supposed to protect it. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. My name is Naomi Clark, and that was the day I realized I didn't lose an inheritance. I lost my father. Mom got sick when I was 24. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave her 6 months, and she fought for 8. Every single day of those 8 months, I was there. I quit my full-time job and picked up part-time shifts at a coffee shop so I could spend mornings at the hospital. I learned how to change 4 bags, how to talk to hospice nurses, how to hold her hand when the pain got so bad she couldn't speak. Marcus visited twice. Once on Christmas because Dad made him, and once 3 days before she died because the hospital called him directly. Both times, he stayed less than an hour. He'd walk in wearing expensive cologne, check his phone constantly, and leave saying he had important meetings. Dad wasn't much better. He'd show up for an hour here and there, sit in the corner reading the newspaper, and leave without saying much of anything. Mom knew. She'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "You're the strong one, Naomi. You always have been." Those words kept me going through the sleepless nights, the insurance battles, the medication schedules. I thought I was doing it out of love. I was. But I also thought it meant something. That it counted for something. I was wrong. Growing up, Marcus was the golden child. Literally. Dad called him my golden boy at every family gathering. Marcus played football in high school, barely graduated, then bounced between community colleges before dropping out entirely. None of it mattered. Dad still bragged about him constantly. "Marcus is figuring himself out," he'd say. "He's got potential." Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs through college. Paid my own tuition. Graduated with honors in business administration. Got a decent job at a marketing firm. Saved every penny I could. When I told Dad I'd been promoted to junior account manager, he said, "That's nice," and immediately asked if I'd heard Marcus was thinking about starting a clothing line. The clothing line never happened. Neither did the food truck business. Or the real estate investing. Or the cryptocurrency thing. Marcus had a new $1 million idea every 6 months, and Dad funded every single one with enthusiasm I never saw directed at me. I stopped trying to impress him somewhere around age 19. It hurt less that way. But Mom was different. She saw me. She celebrated my small victories. When I got my first apartment, she brought over a plant and said, "You did this yourself. Never forget that." I thought that meant she'd protect me somehow. Make sure I was taken care of. She tried. She really did. 3 days before Mom died, she called me to her bedside when we were alone. Her voice was barely a whisper, her hand cold in mine. The morphine made her drift in and out, but in that moment, she was clear. Naomi, she said, squeezing my fingers with what little strength she had left. I made sure you're taken care of. Your father knows. Half is yours. He promised me. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Don't worry about that, Mom. Just rest. No. Her grip tightened. Listen to me. I made him promise. Half of everything goes to you. You earned it. You were here. You stayed. I didn't care about the money then. I just wanted her to stop worrying. I know, Mom. I know. She relaxed slightly, her eyes closing. Good. He promised me, Naomi. He looked me in the eye and promised. That promise died with her. I just didn't know it yet. Dad stood in the hallway during that conversation. I know because I saw him walk away from the door when I came out. He heard everything she said. He knew what she wanted. He just didn't care. The day after the lawyer's office disaster, I showed up at Dad's house. My childhood home. The place felt smaller now, darker. He was in the living room watching television like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just cut me out of my mother's will without warning. We need to talk, I said, standing in the doorway. He didn't look away from the screen. About what? About yesterday. About the inheritance. About the promise you made to Mom. He finally glanced at me, his expression blank. It was your mother's money. She's gone now. I decide where it goes. She told me half was mine. You promised her. She was dying, Naomi. People say things when they're dying. I did what was best for this family. Marcus walked in then, eating cereal straight from the box. He looked between us and rolled his eyes. Are we really doing this? Grow up, Naomi. Dad made his choice. I turned to Marcus. You know this isn't right. You know what she wanted. He shrugged. Life isn't fair. You'll get over it. Dad stood up, his voice cold and final. This conversation is over. Don't make this about you. You're not a victim here. You just can't accept that your brother needs this more than you do. I stared at him, searching for any trace of the father I thought I knew. There was nothing. Just a stranger who happened to share my last name. I walked out without another word. 32 days later, it was gone. All of it. Mom's entire life savings. $147,000. Vanished. I found out through my Aunt Patricia, who'd heard through a cousin that Marcus had gotten into some financial trouble. When I pressed for details, she hesitated. He invested in some business ventures, she said carefully. Cryptocurrency mostly. And I think there was a car. And some gambling debts. I sat down, the phone pressed to my ear, feeling numb. All of it? Honey, I don't know the exact numbers, but your father's been calling around asking family for loans. I thought you should know. That night, Dad called me for the first time since the lawyer's office. No apology. No acknowledgement of what he'd done. His voice was tight, strained in a way I'd never heard before. Naomi, we need to talk. Your brother made some mistakes. We're in a tough spot financially. I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at the wall. What kind of mistakes? That's not important right now. What's important is that we're family. We help each other. Like you helped me? Silence. Then, this isn't the time for grudges. We need you to be the bigger person here. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. From something colder. Something clearer. He called again the next morning. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Naomi, I know you're upset, but listen to me. You've always been the responsible one. The smart one with money. Your brother needs guidance, and frankly, we need financial help getting through this rough patch. You want me to give you money? Not give. Loan. Family loans family money. That's how it works. I almost laughed. You gave Marcus my inheritance and now you want me to loan you money to cover his gambling debts? It's not like that. He made some bad investments. It could happen to anyone. You're choosing to make this difficult. I'm choosing? My voice rose despite myself. I'm choosing? You chose, Dad. You chose Marcus over me. You chose to break Mom's promise. You chose everything that's happening right now. Your mother would be ashamed of how selfish you're being. The words should have hurt. Maybe a year ago they would have. But right then, all I felt was clarity. Crystal clear, cold clarity. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up and blocked his number. It was easier than I expected. The email arrived 3 days later. The subject line read, "We're still family." I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me click. The message was long, rambling, and calculated. Dad had clearly spent time crafting each guilt-laden sentence. He talked about Mom, about family values, about forgiveness. He said I was holding on to anger and that I wasn't being very Christian about the situation. He mentioned how much Mom loved both her children equally and how she'd want us to support each other. The line that stood out most was, "Your brother is struggling with depression because of this financial setback, and your refusal to help is making it worse. I hope you can live with that." At the bottom, he'd included a Bible verse about forgiveness. I read the whole thing twice, taking screenshots, then saved it in a folder on my laptop. I didn't reply. Engaging would only give him ammunition. Instead, I forwarded the email to my Aunt Patricia with a simple message, "This is who he really is." She called within an hour. "Naomi, I had no idea he was this manipulative. I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just remember this when he calls you asking for money." "I will. I absolutely will." The lies started spreading like wildfire through the family. I discovered it at my cousin's wedding 2 months after the inheritance disaster. People kept giving me strange looks, whispering. Finally, my Uncle Thomas pulled me aside. "I'm sorry about the situation with your father," he said carefully. "But I have to ask, was it really pride that made you turn down your share?" I stared at him. "What are you talking about? Your dad said you refused the inheritance because you wanted to prove you didn't need family help. That you told him to give it all to Marcus because you were too proud to accept it." My blood went cold. "That's not what happened." "So you didn't refuse it?" "Uncle Thomas, I didn't even know about the will until I watched him sign it over to Marcus. There was no offer to refuse." His face changed, understanding dawning. "Oh. He made it sound like it was your choice." "It wasn't. He cut me out completely and now he's rewriting history to make himself look better." Word spread quickly after that conversation. Some family members believed me. Others didn't. My Aunt Caroline stopped returning my texts. 2 cousins unfriended me on social media. But Patricia, Thomas, and a few others started asking questions. The narrative Dad had built was cracking, but the damage was done. Half the family thought I was a bitter, selfish daughter punishing her father for respecting her wishes. I stopped trying to explain myself. Stopped answering questions. Stopped showing up to family events where I'd have to face the whispers and judgment. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I focused entirely on myself. I sat at my kitchen table one night with my laptop and created a spreadsheet. Income, expenses, savings, goals. Everything laid out in black and white. The numbers weren't pretty. My part-time coffee shop salary barely covered rent and groceries. I had $1,700 in savings. No safety net. No backup plan. But I had something Marcus never had, discipline. And something Dad never gave me credit for, intelligence. I opened another document and titled it simply, 5-year plan. Then I got to work. Real estate seemed impossible with my current finances, but I could learn about it. Investing felt scary, but I could start small. I had time. I had motivation. And I had absolutely nothing to lose. That night, I applied for 3 additional part-time positions. By the end of the week, I picked up weekend shifts doing data entry and started driving for a rideshare company on Friday nights. It wasn't glamorous, but every extra dollar went straight into savings. I canceled subscriptions I didn't need. Started meal prepping. Stopped buying coffee out, which felt ironic given where I worked. Marcus burned through an inheritance in 32 days. I was going to build something that would last. 3 years crawled by. 3 years of working multiple jobs, saving every possible penny, learning everything I could about money and investing. I took free online courses in financial planning. Read every book I could find about real estate investing. Joined online communities where people shared strategies for building wealth from nothing. I moved into a cheaper apartment with 2 roommates. Sold my car and took the bus everywhere. Wore the same 5 outfits on rotation. People at work probably thought I was struggling, and I was, but every sacrifice had a purpose. Every dollar I saved brought me closer to something real, something mine. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in November, I signed the papers. A small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. It needed work. The kitchen was outdated, the carpet was stained, and the fence was falling apart. But it was mine. My name on the deed. No cosigners. No family money. Just 3 years of relentless work and sacrifice. I sat in the empty living room that first night, keys in my hand, and cried. Not sad tears. Relief. Pride. Proof that I could do it alone. That Dad was wrong about me. That I wasn't the waste of potential he believed I was. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad, heard you bought a house. Must be nice to have extra money lying around while your family struggles. I blocked the number and went to bed. The lawsuit came out of nowhere. Well, not nowhere. Marcus had apparently been running a consulting business where he took money from small business owners, promising to help them expand, then delivered nothing. One of those owners was an attorney who didn't appreciate being scammed. The lawsuit named both Marcus and Dad as defendants since Dad had co-signed on the business registration and several loans. I found out through a public records search. I'd started checking periodically, not because I wanted to gloat, but because I needed to know if they'd try to come after me legally somehow. What I found was a complete mess. Multiple lawsuits. Liens. Collections notices. The house I grew up in had a foreclosure notice filed against it. My Aunt Patricia called that same week. Naomi, I don't know what to do. Your father called asking for $50,000. Said they're going to lose everything if someone doesn't help. Are you going to give it to him? Absolutely not. Not after everything I've learned. But I wanted you to know he's desperate. He might reach out to you. He already tried. I blocked him. She sighed. Good. You don't owe him anything, honey. What he did to you was unforgivable. After we hung up, I pulled up the lawsuit documents again. Read through every detail. Marcus had taken nearly $200,000 from various people, promising business consulting and investment opportunities. The exact same pattern as when he'd burned through Mom's money. And Dad had helped him do it, co-signing everything, legitimizing the scam with his name. They weren't just broke. They were facing serious legal consequences. And I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Marcus showed up at my house on a Saturday morning. I don't know how he got my address, but there he was, standing on my porch in wrinkled clothes, looking 20 pounds thinner than the last time I'd seen him. His golden boy confidence was gone, replaced with something desperate and hollow. "Naomi, please. I need to talk to you." I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "How did you find me?" "That doesn't matter. Look, I know things have been bad between us, but I'm in serious trouble here." "I know. I read about the lawsuits." He looked surprised. "You've been following it?" "Hard not to when it's public record." "Then you know how bad it is. We could lose everything. The house, Dad's retirement, everything. We need help." "You mean you need money?" "Yes. A loan. I'll pay you back, I swear. I just need enough to settle some of these cases and keep the lawyers happy." I looked at my brother, really looked at him. The entitlement was still there, buried under the desperation. He wasn't sorry. He was just scared. "No. Naomi, please. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie. You and Dad made your choices. Now you get to live with them. Mom would want you to help." I stepped forward, my voice ice cold. "Don't you dare use her name. You didn't care about what Mom wanted when you took my inheritance. You don't get to use her memory as leverage now." I closed the door in his face and locked it. He banged on it for 2 minutes, then left. I watched through the window as he walked to a beat-up car I didn't recognize and drove away. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From power. From finally standing up for myself in a way I'd never been able to before. The family implosion happened on Facebook of all places. My cousin Derek, who'd always been close with Mom, posted a long status detailing everything he'd uncovered about the inheritance situation. He'd somehow gotten copies of Mom's original will intentions, the final signed documents, and several of Dad's manipulative emails. He laid it all out publicly, ending with, "Some of you have been judging Naomi Clark for years. You owe her an apology." The comments section exploded. Family members who'd believed Dad's lies started asking questions. Others defended him. Arguments broke out in nested comment threads. Someone shared screenshots of texts where Dad had asked them to pressure me into helping financially. Another cousin shared a voice message where Dad had called me ungrateful and vindictive. Within hours, 3 different family members had sent me apology messages. My Aunt Caroline, who'd stopped speaking to me, called crying. "I'm so sorry, Naomi. I believed him. I should have talked to you first." The family group chat descended into chaos. Dad tried defending himself, but every explanation made things worse. Marcus posted a rambling message blaming cancel culture and family betrayal. Then Dad left the group chat entirely. 20 minutes later, Marcus did too. I watched it all unfold from my living room, a cup of tea cooling in my hands. I hadn't started any of it, hadn't posted anything, hadn't defended myself. The truth came out on its own because lies always collapse eventually. They just needed enough pressure. The letters started arriving a week later. Real, physical letters. The first was from Dad, 4 pages of handwritten text that swung wildly between rage and desperation. He called me ungrateful, cold, calculating. Said I'd always been difficult, always been jealous of Marcus, always been the problem. He said no man would ever want to marry someone as bitter as me. That I'd die alone and realize too late that family was all that mattered. The last line read, "You've destroyed this family, and I hope you can live with that." I read it once, then filed it in my growing documentation folder. If they ever tried to sue me or claim I'd somehow wronged them legally, I wanted evidence of who they really were. The second letter came from Marcus. Shorter, but more desperate. He begged me to reconsider helping them. Said he'd made mistakes but everyone deserved a second chance. Promised he'd changed. At the bottom, he'd written, "Please, Naomi. I'm your brother." I threw that one away. He'd made his choice years ago. Brother was just a word, and words without actions meant nothing. The third letter never arrived because I'd installed a P.O. box system. Everything from them went straight to a folder I only checked monthly. I didn't need their poison in my daily life. I had better things to focus on, like the second rental property I was about to close on. Like the life I was building without them. Dad showed up at my workplace 6 months after the Facebook explosion. I was in a meeting with clients when the receptionist messaged me, "There's a man here claiming to be your father. Says it's urgent." I excused myself, walked to the lobby, and found him sitting there looking smaller than I remembered. Older. Worn down by consequences he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. "Naomi, please. Just 5 minutes." I glanced at my receptionist, then back at Dad. "You have 3. We walked outside to the parking lot. He immediately launched into his pitch. "The attorney fees are killing us. Marcus might go to jail. We're losing the house next month. I know you're angry, but you're also doing well. You could help if you wanted to." "I'm not going to." "Why? What did we ever do that was so terrible? Your brother made some mistakes, but he's still your family. You want a list?" I kept my voice level, professional. "You gave away my inheritance while lying about Mom's wishes. You spread lies about me to the entire family. You sent me manipulative messages trying to guilt me into fixing your mess. You never once apologized. And now you're here at my workplace trying to pressure me in public. So you're just going to let us lose everything? You lost everything on your own. I had nothing to do with it. Your mother would be ashamed." I smiled, not warmly. "No, Dad. She'd be proud. She told me to be strong, to build my own life. That's exactly what I did. Without you. Without Marcus. Without the money you stole from me. I did it anyway, and that's what you can't stand." He stared at me, realization flickering across his face. "You planned this. You've been plotting revenge this whole time." "No. I've been living my life. You destroyed yours without any help from me." A car pulled up. My client meeting was finishing. I needed to get back inside. "Don't come here again. If you do, I'll call security." I walked away and didn't look back. The bankruptcy filing appeared in public records 2 weeks later. Dad and Marcus both. The house I grew up in sold at auction for $62,000, barely covering the outstanding liens. All the furniture, all the memories, gone in a county sale that took less than 3 hours. I drove by the house one last time before the new owners moved in. The tree Mom and I planted in the backyard was still there. Everything else felt like it belonged to strangers. I didn't feel victorious. I felt nothing at all. They'd chosen this path step by step, decision by decision. I just refused to go down with them. That wasn't revenge. That was survival. Marcus moved in with a friend, according to social media. Dad moved to a small apartment across town. The lawsuits were still ongoing, but most had settled for pennies on the dollar now that there was nothing left to take. My cousin Derek texted. "Heard about the bankruptcy. You okay?" I replied, "I'm fine. How's your family?" We talked about normal things. His kids' soccer games. His new job. The weather. Life continued for people who hadn't spent years destroying themselves. The family stopped inviting Dad and Marcus to gatherings. Not because anyone officially banned them, but because nobody wanted the drama. Some relatives had lost money helping them over the years. Others were just tired of the chaos. Dad became that relative people mentioned in hushed tones. "Did you hear about Thomas's brother? Such a shame what happened." Except it wasn't a shame. It was justice. I got promoted to senior marketing director on a Tuesday. 12 years after graduating college, 6 years after Dad cut me out of the inheritance, 3 years after buying my first house. The promotion came with a substantial raise and the respect I'd earned through consistent, excellent work. My boss took me to lunch to celebrate. "You've built something impressive here, Naomi," she said. "A lot of people have natural talent, but you have discipline. That's rarer." Discipline. The thing Marcus never had. The thing Dad never taught him because he never needed to learn consequences. I'd learned discipline the hard way, through necessity and spite and determination to prove I was worth more than they believed. That night, I updated my will. I'd hired an attorney 2 years prior, determined to do this right. The document was clear, detailed, and left my estate to charities I believed in and friends who'd been there when blood relatives weren't. Not because I was rich, but because I wanted control over my legacy. The biggest donation would go to a hospice care organization. In my mother's name. Because she'd tried to do right by me, and even though Dad stole that chance, I could still honor her intention. I signed the papers, got them notarized, and filed them properly. If anything happened to me, my story wouldn't repeat. There would be no ambiguity, no manipulation, no golden child stealing from shadows. Dad showed up one last time. I let him in, but only to the porch. He looked terrible. 70 years old but appearing 80, worn down by stress and poverty and the weight of his choices. He sat on the step, crying quietly. "I don't know how it came to this," he said. "I thought I was helping Marcus. I thought he needed it more. He didn't need it. He wanted it. There's a difference. I should have listened to your mother. She knew. She tried to tell me." "Yes, she did. Can we start over? Can I be part of your life again?" I looked at this broken man who'd once been my father. I tried to find sympathy, but all I found was indifference. "No. Please, Naomi. I'm alone. Marcus won't talk to me either. We had a falling out over the bankruptcy. I have nobody. That's not my responsibility. I'm your father. Biology isn't the same as family. You taught me that when you chose Marcus over me every single time it mattered. When you broke Mom's promise. When you blamed me for your failures. I'm not starting over, Dad. I already started over years ago. Without you." He sat there for a long moment, then stood slowly. "I hope you find happiness, Naomi. I really do. I already have." He walked to his car, a decade-old sedan that barely ran. I watched him drive away, then went inside and locked the door. That was the last time I saw him. 3 years later, I heard through Patricia that he'd moved to Arizona to live with a distant cousin. Marcus, apparently, had disappeared entirely. Some said he'd moved to Colorado. Others thought Texas. Nobody knew for sure, and fewer people cared. My chosen family gathered at my house for Thanksgiving. Not relatives by blood, but people who'd earned the title through loyalty and love. My best friend Keiko, who'd helped me move into my first apartment. My coworker Devin, who'd mentored me through every promotion. My neighbors, the Rodriguez family, who'd watched my house when I traveled and invited me to their celebrations. Patricia and Derek came too, the only blood relatives I maintained relationships with. We cooked together, laughed together, told stories around a table I'd bought with my own money in a house I'd earned through my own work. At one point, Keiko raised her glass. To Naomi, who taught us all that family is what you build, not just what you're born into. Everyone cheered. I looked around at these faces, these people who'd chosen to be in my life and whom I'd chosen in return, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. No resentment. No anger. Just gratitude for the life I'd created from nothing. After dinner, I walked Patricia to her car. She hugged me tight. "Your mother would be so proud of you, honey. You took the worst thing that could happen and turned it into fuel." "I just did what I had to do." "No, you did more than that. You showed everyone that integrity matters more than genetics." I stood in my home office, looking at the framed photo of Mom on my desk. It was from my college graduation, the two of us smiling in the sunshine. She'd been healthy then, vibrant. Full of dreams for both of us. I'd kept my promise to her in the only way I could. Not by fighting for money that was gone, but by proving I could build something meaningful without it. I did it, Mom, I whispered. I kept going. The house was quiet. Outside, birds sang in the trees I'd planted. The fence I'd repaired stood straight and strong. The kitchen I'd renovated gleamed with new appliances. Every corner held proof of my resilience, my refusal to let cruelty define my worth. My phone buzzed. A message from my boss about a new project, a major account I'd be leading. Opportunities kept coming because I'd earned them through competence and consistency. Not through manipulation or entitlement, but through actual work. I thought about Dad sometimes, wondering if he ever understood what he'd lost. Not the money. Money was temporary. But me. A daughter who would have stood by him through anything if he'd just shown basic respect. Marcus too. I would have been his biggest supporter if he'd treated me like family instead of competition. They chose their path, and I chose mine. Sometimes I wondered if they thought about me, if they regretted their choices. Then I remembered, it didn't matter. Their regret couldn't change the past, and I'd already moved beyond it into a future they weren't part of. 5 years after the inheritance betrayal, I received a message from an unknown number. Naomi, it's Marcus. I'm sober now. 2 years clean. Working on making amends. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry for everything. You were right about all of it. I read it 3 times. Looked at the read receipt showing he'd see when I opened it. Then I deleted the message without responding. Maybe that made me cold. Maybe I should have given him a chance to apologize properly. But I'd learned that forgiveness wasn't something I owed anyone, especially people who'd spent years treating me like garbage. His sobriety was great. His amends process was important. But neither required my participation. I blocked the number and went back to my morning coffee. Some bridges burn so completely that rebuilding them isn't worth the effort. I'd spent too long constructing a life without them to let them back in now, even in small ways. Patricia called later that week with news. Your father's moving back. The Arizona thing didn't work out. He asked if I thought you'd be willing to meet with him. What did you tell him? I told him to respect your boundaries and leave you alone. Thank you. He's not well, Naomi. I want you to know that not because you need to do anything, but because you deserve to know. The choices he made, they destroyed him. Physically, emotionally, everything. That's unfortunate, but it's not my responsibility. I know. I just wanted you to be prepared in case he tries to contact you. I appreciated the warning, but I wasn't worried. I'd built walls that couldn't be breached by guilt trips or last-minute redemption attempts. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Official-looking envelope, attorney's return address. Inside was a brief note informing me that my father had passed away from a heart attack. No funeral had been planned. His remaining possessions had been surrendered to the state. There was no estate to speak of. Marcus had been notified but hadn't responded. I was listed as next of kin by default. I sat with the letter for a long time, waiting to feel something. Sadness. Relief. Anger. Anything. But there was only emptiness where a father-daughter relationship should have been. He'd died the way he'd lived in his final years. Alone, broke, having burned every bridge that mattered. I didn't attend any memorial. Didn't reach out to Marcus. Didn't tell most people it had happened. I simply filed the letter away and continued with my life. Patricia sent flowers with a card, you don't owe him grief. Take care of yourself. That kindness meant more than any relationship I'd had with Dad in the last decade. Some people worried that I'd regret not reconciling. That I'd wish I'd given him one more chance. But I knew myself better than that. I'd given him chances for years. Extended grace he never earned. Hoped for change that never came. walking away wasn't cruel. It was necessary. And his death didn't magically erase the years of disrespect and betrayal. It just meant those years were finally, completely over. I celebrated my 35th birthday with a party at my house. 23 people showed up. Friends, colleagues, neighbors. People who knew my story and stood by me anyway. People who'd proven through actions, not words, that they cared. We grilled in the backyard, played games, told stories. Devin made a toast to Naomi, who taught us that success is the best response to people who doubt you. Everyone cheered. Later, Keiko pulled me aside. You know what I admire most about you? You didn't let bitterness consume you. You could have spent years angry, but you channeled it into something productive. I was angry for a while, I admitted. But staying angry would have meant they still controlled my life. I wanted control back. And you got it. Look at everything you've built. I looked around at my home, my friends, my life. She was right. I'd built something real. Not from inheritance or family money or lucky breaks. From discipline, determination, and refusing to accept someone else's definition of my worth. The best revenge wasn't destroying them. It was thriving without them so completely that their opinions became irrelevant. They'd expected me to fail, to come crawling back, to prove their low opinion correct. Instead, I'd proven them wrong in every way that mattered. I stood in my living room one quiet Sunday evening, the house peaceful around me. On the mantel sat 3 photographs. Mom at my college graduation. Me holding the keys to this house. My chosen family at last Thanksgiving. No pictures of Dad. No pictures of Marcus. Just the people and moments that actually mattered. My phone sat silent on the coffee table. No desperate calls for help. No guilt-laden emails. No manipulation disguised as family obligation. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you made the right choices, even when they were hard. Even when they hurt. I thought about that day in the lawyer's office. You'd waste it anyway. Those words had cut deep, deeper than Dad probably intended. But he'd been wrong. I hadn't wasted anything. I'd taken nothing and turned it into something. Built a life on my own terms with my own hands through my own effort. Mom had promised I'd be taken care of. Dad broke that promise, but in a strange way, she was right anyway. I'd taken care of myself. Learned to rely on my own strength. Discovered I was capable of more than anyone in my family gave me credit for, including sometimes myself. The inheritance was never really about money. It was about respect, recognition, value. Dad gave Marcus money and it destroyed him because he'd never learned to earn anything. Dad gave me nothing, and it forced me to earn everything. In the end, I got the better deal. My business phone buzzed. A new client inquiry. A woman going through a divorce, asking about financial planning services. I'd started consulting on the side 6 months ago, helping people rebuild after major life changes. Turned out surviving family betrayal had given me valuable perspective others needed. I picked up the phone and typed a response. I'd be happy to help. Let's schedule a call. This was my legacy. Not money passed down through a will, but strength earned through adversity. Skills developed through necessity. Wisdom gained through pain. And a life built brick by brick without anyone's permission or approval. Sometimes the best revenge isn't taking something back. It's proving they were wrong to ever take it from you in the first place. I'd proven that beyond any doubt. My name was never on that inheritance. But I won anyway. Not by destroying them, but by refusing to let their destruction touch me. By walking away and building something they couldn't poison, couldn't steal, couldn't diminish with their opinions or expectations. I looked at Mom's picture one more time. I kept going, I whispered. Just like you told me to. The house was quiet. The life I'd built was mine. And that was worth more than any inheritance could ever be. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does family mean to you? Please share below and subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine.